This is SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media, Podcasters for India Inc.
Hello everyone, this is Archana Jarrett tuning in once again with SHRM Radio's special series on Together Forward at Work, celebrating equality and differences at the workplace. My guest today is Amita Kharadkar. She's Vice President Site Head Quality Assurance at a major global bank. And she's also an inclusion and diversity evangelist. She has spoken in many forums, including TEDx. She is a wonderful, wonderful guest today. Amita, it is such a pleasure to have you on SHRM Radio.
Thank you so much, Archana and SHRM, for having me. I feel really honored and humbled to have this dialogue with you all. Thank you so much.
I hope, Amita, through this conversation, we can move one step closer towards dispelling stereotypes, biases, and prejudices at work and in life in general. So to begin with, my first question to you is that you've stated many times that your mission and vision is to help humans see humans, and I would, to add to that, without any bias or prejudice, really as who they are. It's a very simple mission statement, but why do you think it is so difficult for us to practice?
Yeah, Archana, thank you so much for this question. More often than not, most of us have this tendency of immediately putting people into boxes. So basically, the kind of milieu we come from, the culture that we belong to, or various types of diversities that we come from in terms of, let's say, religion, color, race, sexual orientation, gender identity. So that's where we have this tendency, which is sort of innate quality of most of us, of categorizing people immediately or making snap judgments. So maybe looking at the exterior of an individual, we categorize that person. That's where it's important that we revisit our judgments. We take a step back for a moment and reanalyze our analysis of the other individual. Is it because of our prejudices? Is it because of our preconceived notions? Is it because of, the various biases that we are carrying with us? And that is important because, as I mentioned, we make a lot of snap judgment based on these categorizations or judgments. And that's where categorization or boxes. That's where to actually understand or get deep into the skin of the other individual, understand the potential of the other individual. It's important that we look at the other individual as a human.
Do you think we're hardwired, from childhood or conditioned to look at these, differences, or if you put it the other way around, trying to find similarities? What is it that we could be doing differently?
So biases is something which is sort of an innate quality of all of us, and that's where we can't really completely eradicate it. But what we can do differently is constantly revisiting our decisions. So constantly revisiting our perceptions about this other individual. And secondly, constantly educating ourselves. A lot of us also have this notion of self-righteousness. Self-righteousness is basically whatever my understanding is, whatever my opinions are, whatever my ideologies are, that is what it is. That's what is right, that's what is correct, and that's how the world is. So we look at the world from a very restricted, prejudiced lens. That's where it's important that we question our own decision making. We question our own perceptions. We educate ourselves based on the things that we don't know. I mean, come on. There are so many things that happen under the sun, and we don't know all of that. Especially now, if you look at, let's say, now diversity, we are talking in terms of gender diversity. So a lot of organizations are running initiatives to hire women, or diversity in terms of LGBTI plus diversity. This is where it's attached with intergenerational trauma. A lot of us come from intergenerational trauma. So a male manager who has never seen his mother working, his sister working, his aunts working, and now married to a woman who is a homemaker, might find it difficult to work or sit across a female colleague or might find it difficult to report to a female manager. That is because of the intergenerational trauma. As in, it's not like he's doing it intentionally, but generations he has never seen women working, and that's where he's carrying this preconceived notion or bias that women are supposed to be homemakers. They cannot be the breadwinners of the family, and that's where he might struggle to adjust to this new setup. And that's where education and awareness is important. It's more grave for the LGBTI plus community. I mean, the kind of misrepresentation of culture that we have, the kind of caricaturist pictures that is being portrayed by medias or the so-called babas and gurus, that's where somebody who is heavily influenced by it, or somebody in whose family LGBTI plus is considered to be a taboo, or LGBTI plus is considered to be a mental disorder or something which is a westernized concept, will of course find it difficult to work along with that individual, right? And at the same time, I would say the onus is also on the other individual to stand up for themselves, to rise up for themselves, leverage various channels. It could be in terms of feedback, it could be in terms of one-on-one discussions, or any grievance platforms that have been provided to talk it out in case you have been subjected to any sort of discrimination, any sort of unfair treatment. So the onus is also on you that you stand up for yourself. Yeah?
True, very true. And I think a lot of times, people hesitate to do that. It's not so easy when, you feel that you're in the minority, or you want to blend in also. But, that brings me to your own story, Amita, which is so powerful. What are some learnings that you can share with our listeners from your experience?
Yeah, sure. So the first learning for me has been that we are the architect of our own selves. So, for more than 2.5 decades of my life, I struggled with gender dysphoria, and that's where it reached a point wherein it was sort of a dead end, and majorly because I was influenced by my surrounding, majorly because my decision making was driven by my milieu or my surroundings or people who I have been surrounded with. That's where what helped me really is my being the architect of my own self, taking charge of my own life and looking at my life through my own lens, rather than looking at my life through the others' lenses. And then of course it put me on a voyage of self-discovery. I started seeking answers to my questions. The other lesson for me has been that don't judge yourself based on the others' judgments, because their judgments, as I mentioned, majorly based on their perceptions. They don't know what struggles you have fought with throughout your lives. They don't know what your journey has been. They don't know what have been your achievements. They don't know what have been your victories. That's where let not that affect your own innate potential.
So we're going to carry on this conversation. This is SHRM Radio. We'll be right back.
You are listening to SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media, podcasters for India Inc.
Welcome back to this very fascinating conversation with Amita Kharadkar. Amita, we were talking about, making sure that we measure ourselves by our own beliefs. You've been doing a lot of work with several large organizations as a D&I advocate. Do you see certain common barriers to inclusion across organizations and groups that you work with?
It's great that a lot of organizations are running amazing initiatives, and also they have woken up to the actual definition of diversity with a very, very wider lens. So that's really a great move. They are making a lot of changes in terms of, let's say, infrastructure, policies. But then, of course, there are certain areas of improvements too. So like, for example, some organizations are really behind the garb of diversity, forgetting the actual goal of belongingness. So maybe they need to introspect whether with the vision of diversity, are they really compartmentalizing their workforce into these various compartments of diversity? because the actual goal here is belongingness. So diversity is getting invitation to a party. Inclusion is asking that individual to dance with you, and belongingness is dancing together like nobody's watching. So the actual goal or the actual vision here is belongingness. But organizations are getting shackled in the labels of diversity. So, rather than, of course, conversations or dialogues are really important. Panel discussions are really important because that's how people get educated, But at the same time, organizations also need to constantly introspect their policies, their legal rights and protection at the workplace, policies in terms of, let's say, accessibility, and they need to constantly measure, all these aspects at the work. So basically, emotional well-being, physical well-being, and mental well-being at the workplace. Is it just being looked at through the majority? So if your fire alarm cannot really inform somebody who cannot hear, you have failed in your journey. If your inclusive policies at the workplace do not give the same rights to the LGBTI plus community or any other marginalized community at the workplace, you have failed in the journey. With diversity comes the need for growth. So it's not like you have just hired diversity because you want to meet certain goals, you want to meet certain numbers. Now, once you have hired those individuals, they also have aspirations. They are also coming with their dreams, their career goals. That means with diversity, there is this need for growth for every individuals. So these organizations also need to understand how are you being the enablers for these individuals to achieve their personal goals as well in terms of their career aspiration. When we hire a female employee, so that's where now the female employee will also have, let's say, career aspirations. We all of us have. She want to grow in the corporate hierarchy, but at the same time, in her personal journey, she will seek maternity leave. So the organization need to be enabler here to support that woman, to support her maternity leave, to support her in terms of, let's say, flexible working, to support in terms of policies, to support in terms of infrastructure. And that's how be that enabler in her journey as well. And same for other aspects of diversity as well. When you hire a specially abled person, fine, you have met your hiring target, but is your infrastructure helpful for that individual to come to office? Is your infrastructure helpful for that individual to really deliver to the fullest of their potential? So all these aspects are more from the enablement perspective rather than just target or goal perspective, which is around hiring.
Absolutely. Totally agree with you, Amita. Thank you so much for sharing such, so openly and giving us learnings from your own experiences and your viewpoints. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope all of you are safe in this unprecedented times, taking care of yourselves, following social distancing, wearing masks whenever you're stepping out. So thank you so much for having me. It was great fun.
Likewise, Amita, and thank you so much. Thanks everyone for listening into SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media Podcasters. We'll be back next Wednesday at 10 a.m. with another episode.
This is SHRM Radio in partnership with Timber Media, Podcasters for India, Inc.